There were many times where it seemed like the same scenario would pop up over and over again in my life, and I could sense that God wanted to see what I would do. Some of these tests would include indulging the flesh, purity, usually anything that God was working on in my life at the time. Sadly, many of the times I failed the test. So the question is, how do you pass the test? And in this video, I will show you one simple way to pass the test of God. You see this scenario over and over again with the Israelites after God let them out of Egypt. To give you a little background on the story, the Israelites were in Egypt for over 400 years. Their cries finally made it to God, and God decided that 400 years of suffering was enough. So God himself delivered them from Egypt into the wilderness towards the promised land. But to get a bigger picture of this story, let's fast forward to the time of the judges, where God was saying that I will no longer drive out any of the nations before them that Joshua left. Okay, so what happened? Right here we have God saying he will not deliver them anymore. But if you go back to when they were in the wilderness, or if you go back to when they were in Egypt, he himself delivered them out of Egypt into the wilderness and into the promised land. So what changed? Let's just say that this plan did not go as smooth as one would think, and it did not come without its problems. Not to go too deep into the story, but let's just say when God delivered them from Egypt, he put on a show. So when God delivered them, he didn't just deliver them, he did it in a miraculous way. So there should be no doubt that God can do anything, right? Sadly, just like I failed tests many times that God has placed before me, so did they. What should have taken them 11 days took them 40 years. One of the many tests that God placed before them was trusting in him. I mean, if you've seen the things that he did to deliver them from Egypt, one would think that you would have no issue in believing what he can do now. But that just wasn't the case, and they kept failing the test. So why couldn't they pass the test from God? So here's one simple way to pass the test from God, and that is obedience. When you obey God, he is more readily to go before you and fight your battles, open up doors. And when you obey God, he gives you wisdom. He brings fruit into your life. You live in freedom. Prayers are answered. When you don't obey, you go around the same mountain in the desert, just like the Israelites did for 40 years. When you don't obey, you keep making the same mistakes over and over and over. And God can't elevate you to the next level in your walk with him. He can't trust you, and you stay stuck where you're at in life. So in Judges, God said, I can no longer go out before you and drive out the nations, the ones that Joshua left. Same thing in our lives. When we don't obey, God can't go out in front of us and deliver us from battles, deliver us from things that are going on in our life that we want to conquer. We can never get over the hump, and we keep allowing the same toxic people in our lives. So the one easiest way to pass the test from God is to obey. Let's obey and stop hurting ourselves.